It's the Cryptocurrently podcast, special Sunday edition. As I said on Friday's show, I just wanted to do a show this weekend and kind of explain to my current listeners and to any of you new guys, like, why am I rebranding and where is that going? Look, the thing is I worked with money for a very long time, right? And everything that I see, I see it through an economic lens. You know what I mean? Like, I do that because it's easier to make sense of things, I feel, if you can reduce it to a mathematical problem, and then you work that problem to its solution, right? Like the old saying goes, follow the money. That's all you got to do. For in just about every scenario, you can follow it to a financial end, and that's where your answer will be. And when the cryptocurrency market emerged, as I've said before, I looked at that and I said, oh, I can speak to that. I can see that. I can see, I've lived through craze bubbles, the tech bubble in the late 90s and early 2000s. Like, I was a trader back then. I saw everything that happened. I saw people going crazy. I saw people killing one another for money, right? I saw people killing themselves because of money. And I saw, you know what I mean? Like, I saw that. And so it's like, you take those horrible tragedies and if you can see the money in it, then it's like, oh, that's why that happened, right? This person did that person did this, and it all happened because of money, right? And you can see it. Like, it's a chartable thing. There were, I've got a number of stories, but look, when I started the cryptocurrency podcast, the Crypto Currently, I did that because I wanted to be able to be a voice of reason through all that, because I knew that there would be craziness. And, well, I should say I knew that there would be more craziness than had already been revealed, because when I stepped into podcasting mid-December of 2017, there was already a whole bunch of craziness and crimes that had been committed, and people getting murdered, and people getting kidnapped, like like that. When I saw that, that's what I was saying. Like, oh, I can speak to that. I know why that happens. I know that there's something in the human condition that causes that to happen. Now, as a former trader of commodities specifically, and even more specific to that, of just currencies, watching world leaders making economic decisions is something that I had to do for a living every day. I had to open up the Wall Street Journal. I had to watch Reuters. I had to watch Bloomberg. You know what I mean? Like that. The firms that I worked for paid a great deal of money to belong to what was then called the Bloomberg Newswire. At the time, it was like $10,000 a month. If you wanted the news from them, it cost you a lot of money, right? Because that news was like, you got it in the moment, right? Because when you're trading commodities, like it's not the news so much that's going to determine whether you're successful or not. It's how quickly can you respond to the news. That's the thing. It's all timing, right? So keeping up on the news is that's something that I'm acclimatized to. And when you do that for years and years and years, your mind, it just kind of switches over into that gear, like, okay, well, everything is money, right? Politics and economics, and there's a hurricane that hits Costa Rica. It's like, okay, well, how does that affect coffee? Money. You know what I mean? Like, everything starts turning into just financial equations that you can, chart and graph and all that other stuff. Like, that's how my brain works. But it's not just, of course, at first it was, just so that I could hopefully increase the wealth of my clients, so that I then could, get huge pockets of money in commissions. But after a while, like, you just start seeing everything that way. You start seeing, you go to church and you see people up on stage telling people, like, oh, I have this divine thing from the Almighty, and I'm going to tell you what this thing is, and nobody else but me can tell you this, because obviously you're too stupid to have your own prayer life and speak openly with God. So I'm here to break it down for you. It's like, that all started becoming very much like in my view, like, oh, okay, well, that's, you're trying to increase the amount of space that's taken up in that collection plate. Like you're trying to get paid. You know what I mean? There's a financial incentive for to getting people to use their faith to believe in you and what you're preaching. I've seen that my whole life, and I've seen it in politics, and politics on every level. Politics is what happens when you're in a fight with your spouse. It's politics, right? You have to be diplomatic. You have to, be precise in your speech, whatever. You know what I mean? It's all politics, and it's all money. It all comes down to it. So, as this has been happening, and as all of the other facts that I've been, observing over the last, 30 years of my life is like, well, we've been printing up a whole bunch of money as a country, and now we're $20 trillion in debt, and there's the war in Crimea, there's the, you know what I mean? Like, there's all these things going on. Well, that information hits everybody differently. Everybody interprets that information through their own worldview, you know what I mean? And my worldview is one of economics and politics, right? So, all of that being said, I say all of that to say this: like, there's a question that keeps reoccurring with more frequency, and I'm really happy that this question keeps coming up, particularly on if you watch Tucker Carlson. I like Tucker Carlson. I'm not a fan of everybody over there at Fox News, but I'm definitely a fan of Tucker Carlson, right? Even though I will say this, I do not like the entire setup that is over at Fox News and MSNBC and CNN and all these other things where it's like, they sit down with somebody that has an opposing view. What do you get? You get 3 minutes. What do you get? 7 minutes if you're lucky, right? This person comes in and they have a point of view and they just bicker for 7 minutes and then it's cut to commercial. You can't have a conversation. You can't have a meaningful conversation in that amount of time. I don't care who you are, right? Remember Larry King, when he used to be with CNN and he had that show, and, one day he'd have Jerry Seinfeld on, and the next day he'd have Tammy Faye Baker, and the next day he'd have, I don't know, Mikhail Gorbachev. He probably didn't, but you know what I'm saying? Like he would sit down with those people for, what was it, an hour? A half an hour? Like, that's why that show was so good, because it's like, here, let's talk. Let's talk all the way through. Let's start at the beginning, and let's, in this hour that we have, let's try to get to the finish line. And even in an hour, that's still not enough time. But, it's a hell of a lot better than 3 to 7 minutes or whatever it is that they do on mainstream media. Now, granted, just so we're all clear, I would never watch CNN. I would never turn on CNN. I wouldn't watch anything that they have to say, because it's like, man, it's so clear. It is so clear that the Democrats, the DNC, has an inside line to what it is that you're putting on the air, right? CNN right now is going nuts right now over these kids that are living in these horrific scenarios on our border, right? Where was your righteous indignation 2 years ago, right? Where was it in 2014, 4 years ago? Where was your righteous indignation then? Now that you're bringing it up, it's like, oh, that's awful convenient, right? It's awful convenient. Now you want to expose this, and look at how it's blown up in their faces. It's like, dude, this was your guy. Your guy made these laws, and this was happening under your guy. And now you're going to go on TV and say, oh, it's Trump's fault. We've already seen how that's just completely blown up in their face. It's like, no, those pictures, that was taken during the Obama years. That picture on the cover of Time magazine, Obama, right? Every single thing that they've done, it's like, well, no, you're going to play that card. We're going to play another card right on top of you called a fact. This was happening under your guy's watch. And now you're going to try to expose it? Like this is a Donald Trump thing? No, this was your guy. And it's clear. Like everybody, even the people who are still diehard, like, oh, this is Trump's fault, like deep down, they can see it. You know what I mean? That seed of doubt. Like CNN, like you are planting a seed of doubt into the hearts of the very people that you're hoping buy the products that you sell during your commercial break. You're hoping, you know what I mean? Like, you're hoping that those people follow this and toe this company line, but you are placing seeds of doubt in their hearts because they can see it when it turns out like, oh, this terrible photo. Look at the cover of Time magazine and Donald Trump is snickering at this poor little girl. It's like, nope, Obama, right? And furthermore, that little girl, like, she wasn't in danger. As a matter of fact, her mother had kidnapped that little girl from her father, and also they were not seeking asylum. They were just looking for she was just looking for a job. Like, all these facts come out. And even though, yes, there are people who watch the Young Turks and they watch CNN, like, there's still those diehard people, but even those people know. You know what I mean? That fact has been planted in them, and there's no getting, it's going to grow. You know what I mean? And you've done it to yourself, CNN. So what I was saying about Tucker Carlson is this, is like, he keeps asking this question. I've heard him say it a couple of times. But he keeps asking, like, where is all of this going? Where is all of this going? This is the point of the show that I started back in December. It's not, my show is never about like, oh, if you buy this currency, this cryptocurrency, you're probably going to make some money. And if you stay away from that currency, then you're probably going to retain your own money. Like, my show is never like that. I had guests on that were, you know, representatives of the companies that were trying to sell coin, but everybody who listens to my show right now knows, like, the show is always about just, where is this going, right? How do we keep ourselves from going crazy, right? How is it that we don't catch sudden wealth syndrome, or as they called it in the 1800s, gold rush fever? Like, that's a real mental problem. We saw it happen in the late 1990s and early 2000s. We saw it happen. It was diagnosable. You know what I mean? They brought doctors in. You know? So my show is like, well, how do we keep that from happening, and how do we predict the future? How can we be like little seers of visions and prophets, or whatever it is that you want, however it is that you want to equate that? Like, how do you get into your time machine, go into the future, and see what happened? Well, you just observe the past. You know, you look at things like the condition of the human heart, right? Which is, it's never been good. You know what I mean? People are greedy, and people are selfish, and people are, you know, very much more interested in self-preservation than they are other preservation. You know what I mean? Like, that's just the human condition. So how can we put all that stuff together and make a prediction? Like, where is all of this going? Where is it all going? Right? Because you can, you know, for the new listener, there are signs all around you what's going to happen next. And the easy way, right? And I don't know if people like laugh or think that I'm joking when I use this example, but it's perfect. You drive down the road and you see a sign that says how many miles it is to your destination, Poughkeepsie. You know, 140 miles. Well, if you're traveling at 70 miles an hour, you're going to be in Poughkeepsie in 2 hours. It's a sign. And it tells you what's most likely going to happen in your future if you continue the way that you're going. Is it not? Well, there's all kinds of signs like that, right? And you just have to take them in and try to remove emotion from it all, right? Like, if you're driving down the road and Poughkeepsie's, you know, 2 hours away, if all of a sudden you become fearful, right? That it's like, oh my God, I'm traveling at 70 miles an hour. What if I have a tire that blows out? What if the guy ahead of me, you know, decides that he wants to crash? Or what if he's drunk or whatever? Like, all of a sudden you start panicking. Well, not helpful. It's not helpful to do that. Though, if those things happen, that'll be horrible. But you panicking about it is not going to help you, right? You just have to remain calm and keep your eyes open on everything around you and press on. So what do we see, right? What do we see? Like, here's one thing. So we just saw Sarah Sanders get kicked out of the Red Chicken, right? Or the Red Hen, whatever, right? The owners of that restaurant kicked her out because they don't like her political ideology. They don't like her employer, right? Not so much like they don't like her. They don't like who she works for. And you know, she is a Huckabee, right? Her daddy's been in politics his whole life. So, I don't think it's any secret or surprise to learn that Sarah, Huckabee Sanders is a conservative, right? Good Christian gal's got a family. I don't know how she does that job, by the way, with a family. There is a reason why whoever the White House press secretary is, they only work for 2 years and then they kick them out. They don't get invited back, right? You know why? Because that job it's even crazier than being the president. It's crazy. I don't know what she's doing. Like, she has babies. She has kids. Yeah, I don't know how she does that job, but, hats off to her. And I will be happy for her when she moves, moves out of that position and goes back and has some time off. That job looks like a freaking nightmare to me. I would hate that. But anyway, so she gets kicked out of the Red Hen because of political ideology. So this is, again, like, the left. I made this observation the other day. Like, leftists, progressives, right, liberals, Democrats, those people, them, they don't think. They're not known for their ability to project into the future. So here we have, a couple years ago or whatever, we had a gay couple drive their car miles and miles and miles, passing, I think it's something like 16 different bakeries, a couple of which were owned by Muslims. They passed all these bakeries to target this one guy because they knew he was a Christian, and they knew, like, if they could win a lawsuit, they could take all of his money. They could destroy that man and remove his ability to provide for himself and his family because they didn't like his religious ideologies. So they literally wanted to use the law to attack him, right? That's what's in these people's hearts. They didn't want to enlighten a nation to the injustices going on to the gay community. They wanted to attack somebody and remove his ability to provide for himself and his family and make him destitute. They wanted to ruin him. They make him homeless. They would have that particular community would have cheered if that man lost his home and he was put out on the street. They would have saw that as a moral victory. Think about that. Destroying another man's life, right, for the horrible sin of having a religious ideology and sticking to it, right? That went so far as to saying, no, I will not decorate a cake for you in that fashion, right? That was the extent of his horrific immoral judgment, right? I'm not gonna decorate a cake for you in that way. So when all that happened and the courts came out and they said, no, that guy doesn't have to use his art to paint you a picture of dicks or whatever, right? The court said no, we're not. You're not gonna beat up on this man. A very liberal court, by the way. So win one for us. And the left went crazy. Oh my God, we're supposed to have the separation of church and state. He's not allowed to discriminate against people like that. You can't do that because if he's doing that for religious reasons, that's church and state. You know what I mean? Like they got all wound up. And now, right, as of yesterday, Sarah Sanders gets kicked out of a restaurant. And so now we come back to the left and it's like, you see why this is dangerous? Right? Now you're laughing that these people denied service to this lady because of her political ideologies. And you're laughing about it. You're laughing that Sarah Sanders was denied service. Well, do you see? And they'll say, oh, that's different. Well, of course it's different because now we're talking about your bullshit. Now we're talking about your hypocrisy, right? And unlike you, nobody's going to get sued here. Sarah Huckabee Sanders is not going to try to take the livelihood of those people. The free and open capital market will do that just for her, right? Now people are not going to go to that restaurant based on that reason, right? Even liberals. That's the thing, is that they don't think. They don't think it all the way through. Like, oh, how can this, like, if we set this precedent, like, is there any way that this is going to come back on us and bite us in the ass? Like, they never think like that. It's just like in that ruling, what was it, 2012? 2014, I don't remember when it was, but the Democrats changed the filibuster rule, right? And there were senior Democrats at the time who were saying, like, listen, let me back up. The Democrats wanted to change the filibuster rule because the Republicans kept filibustering their actions, right? So the Democrats had this really smart idea. Let's just, since we're in control right now, since we're in power, let's just change the filibuster rule, right? Problem solved. But there were other senior Democrats who were like, whoa, 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 whoa. You don't understand, like, this thing about us being in power, dude, this changes every 4 years. You know what I mean? Every 2 to 4 years, like, the Senate will get a majority of one side, you know what I mean? Congress and governors, and, like, the power shifts. And you want to change this thing now so we can get away with things now, but when those people are back in power, they're going to use this thing that you're trying to do against us. And that's not going to work out very well, but they did it anyways. And sure enough, as soon as Republicans came back in power, and the Democrats tried filibustering, the Republicans were like, nope. I don't know if you've heard, but there's been a rule change, right? And those same Democrats came, the ones that were warning, they were like, dude, I told you. We warned you about this. Like, why? How is it that you could not see this coming in the future? Did you not believe in the future? Did you not think there was going to be a tomorrow? What's your problem? Right? That's what I'm saying. Like, they don't think. They don't project. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, there's going to be a tomorrow. When these people, these two gay guys that clearly went out of their way to attack this guy that was in his own bakery minding his own damn business. And these two people drove way out of their way to attack this man financially, using the law, which, by the way, that is a huge, huge problem, right? You can't be using the law to victimize your fellow citizens. You're supposed to use the law to protect yourself and to prosecute criminals, not to make a moral case. Anyways, so these people go way out of their way to attack this man and his good family, and they didn't stop and think, like, is there any scenario? Is there any possible scenario? Like, I don't know, if there was a liberal bakery, right, and some left-wing progressive person that owned a bakery, like, what if they refused service to one of our somebody that we don't like? What if that happened? Would there be, you know what I mean? Like, you can't see the future. Given those facts, you can't make a prediction with accuracy, right? So where is all of this going? Is the question, right? Like, you could, if we went back, like if we were all liberals and we went back into that time, we could all ask ourselves, like, where do you think this is going? Should we allow and champion the cause of these two gay people that victimized this man? Should we allow this to happen? Should we stand up for these people that did this horrible thing to that man? You know what I mean? Like, if you just would have stopped and thought about it, now you can see. And now, like, you people that are laughing, like, oh, Sarah Sanders, she got kicked out. It's like, we knew it. We knew your phony asses. You know what I mean? We knew it. We saw this coming. This was easy. This was a chip shot for us. And you people don't think. So, the other things that we're going to be getting very deep into is, the other parts of where is all of this going? And looking at it just practically. Like right now, Angela Merkel's having a very difficult time keeping that flow of militant Africans coming into her country, which has caused a 93% increase in rapes, by the way. And people are getting murdered. And she's having a difficult time because now her people are like, wait a minute, you were saying that this was all some humanitarian thing, like we need to be good Christian people and let these people in, but now you're just bringing people in and letting them sit on their asses and letting the German people pay for it all. Meanwhile, these people are getting bored and restless, so they're going out and raping people and stabbing people and whatever. So she's losing power very quickly. And just, over the weekend, she's starting to make moves to where she's looking to set up camps outside of EU nations, specifically Albania, right? Now, you pull that story up right now, and you will see a bunch of different angles on this story. Some people are saying she is doing that. Some people are saying she isn't doing that. But it's pretty clear that she is, right? And if she isn't, there's a whole bunch of very powerful people that are accusing her of doing exactly that, because Albania is outside of the EU, right? So this would be her staging point. Well, what do again, you start thinking like, well, where is all of this going? Why is this important? Well, the reason why it's important is because if she does that, then Albania would become a staging point. That is a military term. That means that's where you're gathering your troops. And for what? Why would you do that? Why would a person do that? It's just like that game Risk, or pretty much any game whatsoever, right? For adults, Monopoly, Risk, whatever, Stratego? I don't even remember. But that's what war is. It's a game of chess, right? You move this position over here, you put this player over there, you put this in order, that's what war is. It's just a big game of strategy. And so if Angela Merkel is moving to get around EU laws that she's, she's pretty much the head of the EU. That's the same thing as like when the United States put that prison in Guantanamo Bay. It's like we're doing this because we can't legally do this in our own country. It's like, okay, well then you've just admitted to yourself that you're wrong, right? If you have to go around the laws of your own nation, you're bending the law. That's like your first initial thing. Like, well, this is how I know that I'm screwing up. If I'm so afraid of the consequences of the laws of my own land that I have to go around, it's like, dude, why don't you stop and think about what just came out of your freaking mouth, right? Now, look. I know there's a lot of people that are big fans of what goes down in Guantanamo Bay, but you have to keep in mind that the reason for Guantanamo Bay is so that we could detain people without charging them, without giving them due process, right? Those are tenets. You know what I mean? Those are things that are a part of the fabric of the American people. You start going around that, man, you're on thin ice, on sharp skates. Like you're very close to being in danger of becoming the very thing that you're fighting, right? So again, like you look at what Angela Merkel's doing. It's like, well, you've brought all these people in from Africa. They're all men, right? They're all of military age, and they come into your country, and hardly any of them are employed. You've got, I mean that the statistics are so baffling that it's like, oh, that's got to be fake, right? It's so bad that it's almost unbelievable. Like the truth in these cases are stranger than fiction. It's like, well, why are you doing that? Why are you allowing this to continue to happen? There's people who have gotten thrown out of their homes to make room for immigrants, and this just happened in Spain recently. Joseph Watson was talking about it. People getting thrown out of their residences to make room for people who are not there to work. They're not there illegally. They're immigrants. So I mean, take away the fact that that's horribly offensive. It's like, just slow down, remove emotion from it, and ask yourself, like, okay, well, why would somebody do that? Why would somebody do that? If you think about it from a military standpoint, if you think about it from a strategic standpoint, it makes a lot of sense, right? If you were trying to topple a nation or subdue a people, then moving in your troops, moving in your forces under the guise of a humanitarian effort so that all the bleeding hearts are there to shout people down who say, wait a minute, this is wrong, right? That would be a brilliant military strategy, right? It's kind of like what comes to my mind is, like when you study, like if you're a young officer in the military, like in the Army or the Marine Corps, like if you want to advance, then you have to be somebody who's capable of prosecuting a war. And the way that you get the trust of people to get that is like you have to study the history of war. Right? You have to go through all the battles that we have recorded, and you have to read those things, and you have to come up with theories and whatever. And there was this one guy, they asked him, he was at West Point, I think, and they said, his paper that he had to write was about like, well, how would it have been possible for General Custer to win that war or win that battle at the Little Bighorn, right? Because Custer and all his men, they got completely wiped out. And so the question was like, well, how is it that he could have won? And there's one guy, he wrote this whole paper, and to make it really short, he said, well, if he just could have convinced the Indians to come over that hill one at a time. Right? Now think about it. It sounds funny, I know, but it's not a joke, right? Strategically, that made a lot of sense. Strategically, it's like, well, if he just could have got them to come across one at a time, then he could have plucked them all off as they came across the hill, right? So think about that. Like it sounds silly, but that's actually one of a number of correct answers. That is correct. So if you think about it, like in terms like nothing's off base, nothing's barred. You can theorize whatever you want. What is it that could possibly come from bringing all these people in from the third world who hate you, who have a religion that hates you? Hi, honey.
Hi, baby.
Close that door, please.
Yeah.
Why would you do that? Why would the European Union just days ago introduce legislation or try to get legislation passed where people would not even be able to share memes, that the EU would have so much control over the internet that they would literally be able to see what you were typing as you were typing it? Why would you want that kind of control? What could possibly go wrong? How many different variables are there, right? Can you name one good thing that could possibly come of that? Now for the leftists, you're thinking, yes, it would be better if Count Dankula never existed. He was never on the internet showing his pug doing the Roman salute. Okay, careful now. Is there any scenario, right? Because I know you people aren't real long on thinking. Is there any possible way that doing that comes around to bite you in the ass later and almost immediately? Is that even a possibility? Where is all of this going? That's what we're here to talk about on the new show, which I believe is going to be called The Arch Advocate with Pete Dobson. Anyways, that's the Sunday message. Thanks, everybody. If you want to become a Patreon supporter, if you want to throw some dough through PayPal. Thanks to everybody that supports the show, by the way. Sorry, I got to go because my wife just got home with the groceries and I got to put them in the refrigerator. If you want to support the show, great. Listen, I need to get out of this country, right? So if you were thinking about making a monthly contribution to the show, now would be the time because I got to get out of here. Things are heating up in the great Macedonian Alps. Anyways, that's the show. I will talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.